This is day 248, not your playground. So I'm outside in the parking lot. I'm spending Father's Day weekend at my daughter's basketball tournament. So this morning I woke up, I was remembering a conversation I had when I was younger and I owned my first business. And I was struggling because things weren't going the way I had planned. I had dreams and visions of growing this great corporate empire. And things just weren't happening for me. So I started seeking some advice, which I think was wise. There's a couple pieces of advice I got. The first piece of advice was if it doesn't make business sense, then it doesn't make sense. Now, you can look at that last word sense with either an S or a C, and I think both apply. And what was meant by that statement was that before you start doing something in a business or before you even go into business, you need to make sure that what you are doing actually is profitable. And let's just be clear, business is all about profit. There's no reason to create a company or create a corporation or a business if your goal is not profit earning. Now, it seems like a lot of us have lost our way on that. We view businesses as almost an entity unto themselves, and they are really. They are a place where culture occurs. They are a place that can have an impact on people's lives and on our society. So, yes, we absolutely, a business can have those things, but we cannot forget that the lifeblood of a business is profit. So, when you have a business, you have to make sure that what you are doing, everything that you are doing, is producing repeatable, profitable effort every day. If it's not doing that, then it really isn't a business. It's something else. And it's the something else that will cause you problems in your growth. So that was the first piece of advice I got. The second piece of advice is the business is not your playground. And that was probably the most impactful thing for me. You see, I had started treating my business as my personal playground. I would come up with some new idea or something I was interested in, and I would want to pursue it. So I had all these resources at my disposal being the business owner. I mean, I'm paying for these people, aren't I not? Or I'm paying for these resources. So why can't I use these resources to chase whatever I think is good that day? Whatever gets me excited, whatever gets me out of bed, that's what I'm going to focus my time and my people on. Unfortunately, the time, people, and resources you have are not unlimited. They are very finite. They are extremely finite. So if you start treating your business as your playground, the next thing that starts to happen is you are distracting the team and moving them away from the things that drive profit and moving them towards things that you find interesting. And that is not a good place to be. Countless businesses fail, especially small businesses, fail because the leadership treats the business as if it's their playground. Now, you would think this happens with young founders, but it also happens at the larger corporate level. And sometimes it happens in many different divisions at the corporate level. And I've experienced both. I've experienced this from a founder level, both being a founder myself as well as being on the board of a couple of new companies. But I've also experienced it being a division head in a large corporation. All of these are very easily victimized by the leader that wants to treat the company as their playground. They think, I'm going to do this great thing, whatever the great thing is. And I'm not trying to degrade the nobility or the viability or even the morality of a cause or of an idea that a leader wants to pursue. Like I may decide, you know what, we really need to be doing this thing, or we need to save the environment, or we need to champion diversity, or we need to protect an underserved part of our population, or we need to give back to our society, or there's this really new cool idea that we should be pursuing and nobody else is pursuing it. Whatever the pet project is, whatever the new idea is, business leaders choose to chase those things at the potential peril of their organization. When you go into business or when you are running a business, you should decide the things that you are doing, what the organization is doing to drive profit. And that is what the organization focuses on. You personally can chase all sorts of ideals and cool ideas, and you should. If there's a cause you believe in, then you should pursue it, and you should pursue it with passion. But you should not steer the company or the organization you are in control of to go pursue that cause. You may think you're doing great things, but in reality, what you're doing is issuing a death sentence to the business or the organization you're responsible for. Now, you may not see it happen quickly. It may take time. It depends on how much money the business is making and how much cash reserves the business has. But if you keep going down that path, then you will lead it to failure. Now, in addition to this, when you treat things like your own playground, I don't know if you've witnessed this, but I've had small children and I've watched them on the playground. And when you let the kid loose in the playground, at first they really don't know what to do. They're kind of overwhelmed. They're like, wow, all this stuff. What do I do? Right? And then they get involved with something. Maybe it's building a sandcastle, or maybe it's climbing up and down and going down a slide or something. But then after a while, they get distracted by something else, and then they get distracted by something else, or they see another kid doing something and they want to do what that other kid is doing. So they just start bouncing around. And as a parent, you're watching that going, why don't you just focus on one thing? Or you were having so much fun over here. So like my son would go run over to try to play something another kid was doing and not have a good experience. He would get all upset. And I'm like, why don't you continue doing what you were doing before? But now what he was doing before is no longer fun anymore because he saw something else. This is the business owner. They're so enthralled by the new idea they come up with that they forget the great idea they had yesterday and they want to go pursue the new one. And consequently, the entire organization is trying to figure out what the leader wants to do. The third thing that I learned from this advice that I sought in my early days as a founder, the third thing was this concept. The organization naturally takes on the characteristics of the leader. If you're disjointed and scattered, the business will be disjointed and scattered. If you are focused on things that don't drive profit, the business will not drive profit. If you are pursuing new ideas every 5 minutes, then the business will pursue new ideas in 5 minutes. If you are disorganized, the business will be disorganized. If you spend too much money, the business will spend too much money. So this is the concept. If your business is failing, and this is the hard part, if the business is failing, you have nobody to blame but yourself because the organization takes on your characteristics. This is, by the way, why a lot of corporations will swap out the CEO every once in a while. And it's because there are traits the CEO brings to the table which are oftentimes needed. But after they serve their purpose and the organization has now done the good things, but they start taking on the negative things with that person, it's time for a change. And so these 3 lessons I think are helpful to consider for those of us that are trying to either create our own business or run a business or run an organization. The first is the business must make sense. If it doesn't, it's going to fail. The second is it's not your playground. Do not treat a business like it's your playground. Good luck on keeping a business to survive if it's your personal playground. And finally, the organization will take on your characteristics. So you cannot stop that from happening. The organization will respond to who you are. There's no way you can stop that. So if something's not going right, take a good look at yourself. And with that, I will get back to basketball. Thank you.